Hi everyone, I'm Allie with the Potomac Bead Company, and I'm going to show you how to do this Pretty Peaks bracelet. The Pretty Peaks bracelet is going to be using some SuperDuo beads, some 8O seed beads, as well as some teardrops. You can interchange some of the different materials for this to get it to be closer or wider apart when you're working with it, but these are the materials that I've chosen to use. To make the bracelet, we're going to be using the white-green luster of the SuperDuo. It's one of our newer colors. I'm also going to be using 8O in the brown, the opaque brown color. And then I have some drops, and the Miyuki Drops I'm using are opaque turquoise blue. And they have that nice kind of Picasso-y look to them. I'm also going to finish it off with a cut button in Jade Picasso to mimic and to catch some of the colors of my bracelet that I'm using. For thread, I'm going to be using 0.006 Wildfire Beading thread. You can also use 0.008 or 10, 12 pound tests. Really for this project, it's not going to matter a ton what type of thread you're using. Depending on your thread, for this project I'm going to use a size 10 English beading needle. And I have some glue sitting here and some scissors. You can also use a burner instead of the glue and the scissors if you prefer to go that route. But we're going to make this nice little Pretty Peaks bracelet. You can also make this doubled. And like I said, you can use some other materials as well, like ruler beads. Any 2-hole beads will work for this project. So to get started, I've cut about 3 feet of my Wildfire beading thread, and I've added a stop bead to the end of it. My stop bead, I just picked up a different bead that was on my bead mat, and this one just happens to be in size 11 bead. I've gone through the bead 2 times with my size 10 needle away from the tail. The tail, I'm not going to worry too much about how long it is, because all I'm going to do is be knotting it to the end of my project once I'm done. So I'm only going to have about a 2 to 3 inch tail, whatever you feel comfortable holding to do that knot. What I am going to do now is start my pattern, and the pattern, when you work with it, you're going to make it a little bit longer than your actual bracelet length, because when you make it longer, it's going to kind of cinch up as we do the project and that zigzag is created. So the pattern's very simple. It's going to start with one of my opaque chocolate brown beads there. And then I'm going to do 2 SuperDuos. After my 2 SuperDuos, I do an 8O and a drop and an 8O. My next pattern, again, 2 SuperDuos, 8O, drop, 8O. I'm doing this the whole length of my bracelet. Again, I do want it to be a little bit longer because it is going to cinch up and get shorter, but you're just going to keep going, doing your project. Oops. So I'm doing my 2 SuperDuos, my 8O, and my drop, and then another 8O. 2 SuperDuos, 8, drop, 8. You can see I load a couple on my needle before I drop it down onto next to my stop bead, but you're just going to keep going the whole way with that same simple pattern, and that simple pattern is what's going to create our nice peaks as we go in from one side, and then we connect to that other hole of the SuperDuo. Once you reach your desired length, and like I said, mine is about 6.5 inches, it will shrink up just a tiny bit. So if you want to and you know the length that you want it to be, make sure to make it a tad bit longer. You can always add on to the end too if you're not exactly sure how big you need it to be. You're going to put on your cut button now. I'm going up through the back of my button. So I'm at the end of one of my rotations, and I have the 2 SuperDuos, then an 8, and then I'm going with my cut button. Sewing up through the back of the cut button. When I come out the front of my cut button here, I'm going to add my SuperDuo through one of the holes, and then I'm going to come down through my cut button here and down through the SuperDuo at the same time. So back through the SuperDuo, back through the cut button. I'm going to give it a nice tight pull. When I get to this other side, I'm going to start my project with my 8O seed bead, and I'm going to go through the top hole here of my SuperDuo. So it's the last SuperDuo that I put on. So if you look here at the end, you're going to have 2 8Os sitting right next to one another coming out of that button. Now what I'm going to do is I'm basically going to alternate the pattern. That's what's going to create some of those peaks. When I'm coming out of a SuperDuo between the ones that are next to one another, I'm going to repeat my pattern that I was doing with my 8-0, my drop, and then my 8-0. I'm going to go through the next SuperDuo that's sitting right next to it, and then at the same time I'm going to take my needle through the SuperDuo that's across from it, that is underneath in the first holes, has the drops and the 8-0s. What this is going to do then, as I pull, you'll see the effect, it's going to create those pretty little peaks. Again, the bracelet will shrink up a little bit in size, so you are going to want to string a little bit more, but like I said, you can go back and you can do that after the fact. As I'm coming out the top hole of my SuperDuo that's next to another SuperDuo, I'm going to add my 8-0, my drop, my 8-0, sewing through the SuperDuo beside it, and then the SuperDuo on the other side of the drops and 8s. Pull nice and tight, and you're going to get those peaks going back and forth. And I'm going to continue doing that, adding my 8-0, my drop, and my 8-0, sewing through the top hole of the SuperDuo right next to, and then at the same time grabbing the next SuperDuo. And give it a nice little tight pull. After each one, I do want to kind of give it a tight pull so that way it kind of grabs on and those peaks really start to happen. I'm going to continue that same pattern, very easy, with my 8-0s and my drops, and then sewing through. And this gets continued the whole length of the bracelet. So as I finish my project here, what I'm going to do is I've taken the stop bead off the first side. I give a nice little pull just to make sure that my project is nice and tight. And what I'm going to do is make a loop for my cup button to fit through on the other side. If you want to, you can use 11-0s. About 27 11-0s fit really nicely. We're going to do right about 16 of our 8-0s. So I'm going to put on a bunch of these here. Okay, so we've got 16 in our row here, and that's going to make my loop in order to go through my cup button. All we're going to do after we take the stop bead off is I'm going to reinforce this by going back through that first 8-0 bead that we put on. After I've done my loop, I'm going to pull nice and tight, and that's going to create that loop. And then what I'm going to do is reinforce the loop. To get back to that loop to reinforce it, I'm going through the SuperDuo, the opposite hole, and going back through that entire loop of 8-0s that I've collected there on my thread. Once I go through all of those, I'm going to go back to my starter thread, and what I'm going to do then with that starter thread, that tail, is I'm going to tie off my project. So it's a very, very simple bracelet. That's nice use of your SuperDuos because you really don't need a lot to do it. We sell them in the tubes here, and the 16 gram tubes, you're really only using about 1/5 of a tube of your SuperDuos. So it's a good thing if you have extra SuperDuos to use and to make. Again, all I do when I get my two ends together is I take them and I'm just going to tie a nice overhand knot once and twice. And then one more time. Once I have those knots, you can take your burner, you can take some glue and dab it on. And then all I'm going to do is, after that, nice tight pull, is cut off my extra threads. There I have my little Pretty Peaks bracelet with my cup button closure. That's going to fit nicely on, and it just has that cute little look to it. When you put it on your wrist and you take it on and off, it's a good stackable bracelet that you could wear multiples because it's not too large on the wrist, that it's just going to have a nice little quick look to it. You can also do this as a necklace and a necklace chain because it does have some movement to it, so it will turn to lay on a necklace. You could add some fringe or some drops here at the end as well, something simple, and then your pattern would keep going. So thanks a lot for watching. Hopefully you take this bracelet and make a quick project. This is one of those you can make and be out the door, in a half an hour and not have to worry too much about things drying or whether or not you got the tension. It's a really, really easy bracelet to work with. If you get a chance, check out the rest of our YouTube videos and watch those, some more complicated as well as some easy projects like this to help you expand your jewelry making knowledge. You can also check us out online at PotomacBeads.com. And also, if you don't get a chance to go to one of our stores that are listed on our locations page, you can also shop online at thebeadco.com. Thanks a lot for watching.